Back in 2010, Ninja Theory released a game called Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Never heard of that one before? Don't worry, no one has. Now, I don't want to be too rude to Ninja Theory here, because having just finished it, I have to say that it was an okay game, although it didn't sell very well. It had some really nice touches, some really interesting touches, and some bad touches as well. Story-wise, the game shares the same literary background as Black Myth Wukong. It is, style-wise, Horizon Zero Dawn, and the camera was revolutionary at the time because it was revolutionarily ass. But more on that later. Oh, and also spoilers for Enslaved and Journey to the West. Many years ago, a Buddhist monk named, I am not gonna even try to pronounce this, so I'm just gonna do this, or also Tripitaka, traveled to India to receive sacred scriptures. With him were 4 disciples aiding him on his way.
Wukong,
A supernatural monkey-like being, a kind of pig, a heavenly general, and a horse. In the end, they had overcome 81 challenges and retrieved the scriptures, and every character had grown in their own individual way. This is the general plot of the almost 500-year-old story Journey to the West by
Wu Cheng'en,
or Arthur Waley's 1942 abridged adaptation Monkey, a Folk Tale of China, which popularized the story in the West. It is a well-known plot, characters overcoming their challenges and reaching a new self on their way to a common goal. Wizard of Oz comes to mind as a more modern Western example. The story has been the subject of countless pieces of music and theater, and in more modern times also TV shows and movies. It is therefore no surprise that sooner or later a video game inspired by the story had to see the light of day. And that is where Enslaved and Black Myth Wukong meet. It should be noted that I haven't played Black Myth yet, and I know that I probably should have, but this video has taken long enough as it is, and this whole comparison angle to Black Myth came in quite late in the writing process, so I'll just stick to Wikipedia and consorts for info.
I have no more right to enslave you than anyone does.
Alright, so how does this all work together? In Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, we play as Monkey, a muscular, stoic brute who is, well, enslaved by Tripitaka, or Trip for short. She controls him via a slave headband that she stole from the game's baddies called Pyramid after crashing one of their slave ships. Monkey, having no say in the matter, with his life being bound to Trip's survival, accompanies her on her way home, and later also into the final fight against the seemingly evil Pyramids. Wait, a monkey, you say? Tripitaka, you say? Yes, I say, Enslaved is heavily based off of Journey to the West, just with the focus of the story slightly adjusted. While in the original, Tripitaka is the focus of the story, the protagonist, Monkey is the playable character in Enslaved. One might argue that Trip and Monkey share the narrative load, but as it just goes with video games, the character you play is the protagonist. But we'll get to those two in a second. Along the way, they are accompanied by a silent robot dragonfly, which Trip tuned to be a surveillance and analysis drone. Name-wise, it is more a nod to the horse, as its name translates to white dragon horse. Dragonfly, dragon horse, you get it. Gameplay-wise, though, it fits the heavenly general better, as he is described as an allegorical representation of human obedience and conformity without a thought, a machine. The dragon horse, on the other hand, is a symbol for the human will, which could be interpreted into the dragonfly somehow, I bet, but I don't see it. Nevertheless, that leaves us with one open spot still. The pig figure is very present in the story of Enslaved as the character of Pigsy, an old friend of Trip's dad who lives on a scrapyard and has a hard-on for robots and technology. And that is not a figure of speech. Pigsy is an uncomfortable character. It's not like I can't appreciate some really dumb dick and booby humor. I definitely can, and I get it when characters are deliberately written to be kind of an ick, but Pigsy is a pig. I know what the intention was behind designing him the way he is, but okay. Trip is 19. Pigsy is her dad's friend, so he must be around 20 to 30 years older than her. She is a literal teen. He calls her a teenager and he constantly hits on her, doesn't respect the evolving relationship between her and Monkey, and even threatens to kill him multiple times. Ha ha, you say. As a joke, you say. No, he actually puts Monkey in dangerous situations that might just kill him, all to get to Trip, even after she very clearly told him to stop it. You're still not convinced? All that after Trip just found her dead father, Pixie's friend. He goes after her hard. I'm glad he's dead. Now, Monkey. In the original story, the headband that controls him is not placed on his head by Tripitaka, but another mystical figure. In Enslaved, it is Trip who, enslaves him by putting the band on him after they crash a slave ship. Ever the angry brute, Trip can control him and keep him in check by inflicting pain on him as soon as he disobeys her orders, gets too far away from her, or if she dies. As much of a grumbling, angry character Monkey is, he reluctantly accepts his fate and accompanies Trip on her journey west. Over time, of course, they grow fonder of each other, and especially Monkey starts worrying about Trip and her sometimes careless actions quite a lot. I actually really liked a plot point later in the game where Trip, driven by guilt after she denied freeing Monkey after he brought her to her father, offered him to finally take off the headband, but he denies. He wants to be enslaved to her, not because he likes it, but as I said, when she dies, he dies, but only when the headband is on, so he would rather go with her than be without her. Trip is Tripitaka, the monk seeking divine truths out west. She is highly intelligent, technologically adept, and sadly, an uneven character. Not in the way of being emotionally unstable, which she also is sometimes, but at times her actions don't really fit her character. In cutscenes, she is depicted as smart enough to hack ancient technology, to repair a humongous machine the size of a mountain, but then she acts just dumb, gets out of a hiding place, for example, which gets Monkey and her in danger, or wants to go after a power cell instead of getting out of a desperate situation. She is, sadly, pushed into the damsel in distress trope a few times too often to fit her otherwise smart character. I do have to say that her absolutely going apeshit and not listening to any warnings of Monkey at all after seeing her people at home being burnt to a crisp is absolutely understandable though. In the end, she is burdened with a very difficult decision. She and Monkey learn that Pyramid, the evil entity which serves as the main antagonist in the game, has enslaved many people, not to use them, but to put them in a sort of matrix where they live happy, if fictional lives. In Pyramid's mind, that is a better, more humanity-conserving life than being in the wasteland. She kills Pyramid though, freeing the slaves, yet asking herself if that really was the right decision. Her design is quite typical for women characters in video games, especially around 2010. Of course, she's wearing a tube top, an exposed belly surely won't be a problem in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and her pants obviously have holes in just the right places. And before you rush to the comments calling me some idiotic term you picked up from Andrew Tate, I actually think that this game is kind of fair in its male and female body representations. Monkey is a hunk of a man, muscular to the max and doesn't even wear a shirt at all. So why not indulge this universe, where this is smart clothing for a post-apocalyptic scenario for both characters, and move on? Because of how both are treated later on. Monkey gets DLC outfits that actually dress and armor him more, while Trip gets a naked robot look. She is not wearing any clothes anymore, and some kind of metal skin is hiding her R-rated polygons. Why, if not for the sheer sake of appeasing horny 14-year-olds, was this outfit designed? It doesn't fit the narrative, unlike Monkey's new outfit, and it doesn't fit the world, unlike Monkey's new outfits. The story in general is okay. It didn't change the world and mostly only developed during cutscenes, but then again, the game is 15 years old. I do have to admit that Pyramid being an AI did catch me off guard, but in a random way. There was not a hint given of that being something possible, and a state-of-the-art shiny pyramid standing in the middle of a desert also didn't really fit the aesthetic very well. They tried hinting at it with collectible flashbacks throughout the story, and in hindsight those made sense, but during the game I just thought, hey, that's Andy Serkis. Yup, the Andy Serkis did the voice work and mocap for Monkey and also worked on Ninja Theory's previous game, Heavenly Sword. His performance was stellar, of course, and Trip's voice actress, Lindsay Shaw, reminded me a lot of Aloy in the beginning, but she should remind most of you guys of Mose from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, because she played her for 3 years. I'll talk more about the gameplay and setting later, because we need to get back to our first question. Where does Black Myth come in? Black Myth Wukong is pretty much the sequel to Journey to the West and therefore the sequel to Enslaved. After the Monkey King helped Tripitaka retrieve the sacred scrolls, after he helped Trip and Pyramid, he ascends to Buddhahood. But as living as a deity isn't
孙悟空
his idea of retirement, he sticks to living on his home mountain, just as Monkey, by Trip's hand, sticks to living in the apocalypse rather than the Matrix. Not trusting him one bit, the Celestial Court sends an army to make him submit. He loses the battle, is sealed into stone, and the main story begins. I don't want to get too deep into Black Myth's main plot, for one because I don't know it too well and it strays away from the connection point to Enslaved, and I also want to keep the spoilers low, so we will just stop here. What is important though is that, looking at it as a timeline, it goes like this. Tripitaka, Trib, needs to find his enlightenment, needs to find her home. They use an enslaved monkey figure and other companions to find what they are searching for, overcoming many obstacles along the way. In the end, they find what they were searching for and grow as individuals. The Monkey King gets a taste of heaven, or however you want to call it, but, and the Odyssey and the journey really separate here, gets either ripped out of it by Trip or decides to leave on his own accord. Enslaved and the journey to the west more or less end here, while Black Myth Wukong picks up the thread and spins its own yarn. Now, I came across a Reddit thread calling Enslaved an accidental great prequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, and that is partially true. Both are set in a wasteland ravaged by robots, both contain humans in archaic clothing, and both have weird bits of technology woven into the world and the story. Speaking of the world, I think it is the biggest intersection between Enslaved and Horizon. The old world is overgrown by nature, high-rise buildings are slowly succumbing to gravity, and, in many cases, wild animals have taken back what humanity has stolen from them. The world design in general is, in my opinion, Enslaved's biggest achievement. The sets are gorgeous at best and really good at worst, and that is hard to achieve. If only there wasn't such a dumb No. I will get to that later. I'm trying to find more specific examples of how similar the two games really are, to show why I think that Guerrilla Games really took a close look at Enslaved in that regard, but I guess I can't say it better than Enslaved's own creative director, who said,
"There's been brilliant games. Horizon is a brilliant game, and I think maybe that's also taken over that mantle or aesthetic, and maybe it wouldn't make sense to do an Enslaved 2 now in that vein. Maybe it would have to be something different. I don't know."
Creatively from your perspective, or do you think from Namco's business perspective? They're like,
oh no, this is purely my perspective. It's like it's what they've done is outstanding and beautiful, and it's got similar stuff in it, you know. So I don't know if I'd want to go up against Horizon now. Like, I think we've got to find a different angle.
What differentiates Horizon and Enslaved a bit more, however, is the gameplay. Horizon is an open-world game, whereas Enslaved has you explore visually open but gameplay-wise closed levels. That surely is in no small part due to its age, and absolutely not a problem, but a big difference nonetheless. Both Monkey and Aloy have a long-range shooting weapon and a fighting staff though, that's a similarity, and both can climb parts of the level. Especially the more closed-off and predetermined climbing of Zero Dawn, not the much better in Forbidden West, is also the same way of climbing many games have you do, with colored bars and stones and sticks and whatever for your character to climb on. But, and I cannot hold this back any longer, the camera fucking sucks. It is so bad. Oh my god. It switches between a static camera that is sometimes close to a damn Mario-like 2D platformer camera, only to suddenly switch to a normal 360 full control camera again, only to god knows why switch it back to, oh I don't know, a camera stuck to Monkey's ass all of a sudden. I get why they did it, and I commend them for trying something new, and given the fact that the game was first pitched as a movie, I understand their angle even more, but it was so annoying to play. There was this one bridge sequence that had me look at the seen from the side, possibly to give me a better look at this incredibly hard riddle, but there were no invisible walls next to the bridges on either side, making me fall off a few times because the controls don't properly switch directions with the camera angle changing. Skill issue, you might say, and I agree, but the game is otherwise filled with invisible walls in very often incredibly dumb places. What do you mean I can't jump down here? I have to go over here, 6 feet to the right or left or whatever. Why? The guardrails, I guess, had to be put in place for some of the weird camera sections, but were then put almost everywhere, but not in the one place where I actually would have needed it. Now, I assume that to not make Monkey look absolutely dumb while jumping against and being stopped by nothing, they made it not possible to jump. You can't jump. You cannot just, I don't know, run somewhere and just jump. You cannot jump during fights. You can jump over obstacles. You can jump down specific ledges, but you just can't jump. Oh wait, you can. In place. I can't make this shit up. Right, alright, sorry, I have calmed down. So, where are we standing now? Enslaved, Odyssey to the West is a good game. It is a great game if you want a creative twist on Black Myth's prequel story, and it is a great game if you like the world and even a bit of the character design of the Horizon series. Last but not least, let's talk about the game itself for a bit. I realize I've criticized it quite a lot, so let's name a couple of things it really did well. The cutscenes are sick. You can really feel the love and detail they put into them. They feel like they were choreographed for a movie, like the set pieces were cut straight off a post-apocalyptic blockbuster. Monkey's finisher animations are just as great and give you a real sense of accomplishment when fighting enemies. You can even use their bodies as a shield after the takedown and push them into other enemies where they explode. That is just cool. The game also manages to pull off quite a good mystery. Who are the slavers? Why am I seeing Andy Serkis in the wasteland? And what happened here in general? I have to say that it's not as good as Zero Dawn's, but I'm also a bit of a fanboy for that, so take that with a grain of salt. I would have liked a bit more info on the history of the world. Not much, no explanations, but more ideas to keep the mind wandering and wondering. The influence of movie-educated people, and I mean Alex Garland co-wrote the story, is really visible. Again, the cutscenes are so good. I wrote something along the lines of, "Damn, the cutscenes are great," into my notes 5 times, and it pulls off a tonal change from funny action to dramatic and sad very well when Tripp reaches her hometown. Even though that was a bit too on the nose, given how she spends the whole game before that like, "Oh, I'm so ready and happy to see my dad. My dad is so great, my alive dad, who is definitely waiting for me." Also, there are some nice gameplay ideas like Monkey's Cloud, but they are quite bound to specific scenarios, and it feels like these scenarios are built around the need to implement the feature. It still was a lot of fun though, unlike the bosses, who are a symptom of one last and sadly very defining issue with Enslaved. They are repetitive and therefore boring. The game is structured like this. Look at this thing 200 yards away. We need to get there, but oh no, there are mechs in the way. Monkey, fight them. Cutscene. Rinse and repeat. The bosses have no real stages, and the way to finish them is usually quite straightforward. The worst was the dog thing. You just fly on the cloud, jump off, stun the dog, hit, float off, repeat. That's it. I wasn't expecting Dark Souls, and I didn't want it, but it was meh. And meh is actually what I wrote as the last thing into my notes. This is an okay game. A good game sometimes, a great game rarely. What it is though is such an interesting study in how games are connected sometimes. I love interconnected universes. It all started with Half-Life and Portal, and I like finding these rare connections like the ones between Enslaved, Black Myth and Horizon. It is a really cool, far-off prequel to Black Myth. It is a design and creative parent to Horizon and many other games. And in and of itself, it is a visually nice and gameplay-wise acceptable experience. Would I play it again? I don't think so. Do I wish I never did? Absolutely not. Thanks for watching.